Hey man, let's learn how to compress vocals in Studio One. What's up, YouTube? Welcome back to the channel. I'm Wavy Wayne from Wavy.wav.com. This channel is all about helping you to record and mix better and faster. Today, we're going to take a look at using a stock compressor to compress vocals in Studio One. Let's go ahead and jump into the session. I have a track here. I'm just going to play it real quick, and we'll start to talk a little bit about what a compressor is, why we need to do it, how to apply the compressor, and then we'll go over the parameters for the compressor to help you get the best sound. All right, so let's just listen to what we got first.
Getting paid in the off season, all that beef, I'm not vegan. They used to call me young heathen, I keep that heat, it's op season. From the block to the blockchain, Mazda the moose same. My Coinbase like blue flames, I'm dropping gems like loose chain.
Oh, drop a like for the wavy bars on there. Drop a like. All right, y'all. So basically what a compressor is used to control the dynamics in an audio signal. The dynamics meaning like the span between the loudest sound and the quietest sound. It's good for us to set a compressor so that once we set our volume fader, we don't have to worry about, parts of it still being too loud or parts being too quiet. Using a compressor is going to allow us to minimize the loud parts while bringing up the quiet parts and have a more even overall signal. Again, we're restricting the dynamics by using a compressor. Let's take a look at this audio wave file that I have here in my session. So we can see that there are a few parts that are kind of dynamic or a little bit louder than the others, where you can see by these peaks in the waveform that show us where it's louder. The compressor ultimately is going to make those sounds more even with the quieter sounds, okay? So that, again, we have a more consistent signal and we don't have to worry about quiet parts ducking up under the beat or too loud parts kind of clipping or going over. So let's go ahead and first insert a compressor. Compressors are always going to be used as an insert directly on the channel that you are wanting to compress. We'll talk a little bit later on another video about sends and returns, but today let's just focus on using a compressor as an insert. I'm going to go right to my insert on this track. You see, I'm working on this vocal. I'm going to hit this plus button, and we're going to go down to PreSonus because I'm just going to use the stock compressor here. This PreSonus compressor is actually really, really dope. Let's go ahead and start to walk through some of the parameters of the compressor, and then I'll show you guys some ways to set it up to get the best sound. Starting off, one of the first parameters on this one is going to be the ratio. Ratio is typically described in a 2-to-1, 3-to-1, or 4-to-1 type of setting, right? To where it's basically saying with a ratio of 2-to-1, for every 2 dB that exceeds my threshold, only 1 dB is going to be allowed to pass. So a 2-to-1 ratio is pretty light. If I turn this up to 20 dB, that's going to be like really heavy compression or even limiting at that point, to where it's saying for every 20 dB that exceeds the threshold, only 1 dB is going to be allowed to pass. All right. That's going to be pretty dramatic when we are working with vocals. Typically, we want our compression to be about anywhere from 3 to 6-to-1. From 3-to-1 to 6-to-1 should be pretty good for your compression ratio. Now, we were just talking about threshold. What is threshold? Threshold basically determines the point at which the compressor kicks in. I always like to use the analogy of having your mom in the car and you riding, and then when you turn up the radio too loud, once it gets too loud, right, and she reaches over to start to turn it down, you've reached her threshold, okay? So once that signal exceeds the threshold, then the compressor is going to engage and start to turn it down. Now, there is a knee here. The knee basically determines now how the transition is going to go from the uncompressed signal into compressed, to where a soft knee is going to be a gradual transition, to where now what I'm doing with lower knee, that's going to be a really kind of hard transition from uncompressed into compressed. So depending on the type of material that you're working on, you may want to have a softer knee or a more gradual knee. For vocals, we'll keep it right about the middle way. We don't want to be too hard or too soft either. So we'll go pretty much right up the middle with that. As far as the threshold setting, that's going to depend on the level of the incoming signal and how dynamic it is. So we're just going to set that as we're playing the actual vocal back. Over here, we also have the input gain. That's if your signal is too quiet or too loud coming in, you can adjust that signal that's going into the compressor. I like that control. When you're using a compressor, A lot of people like to think that it's going to make our signals louder, but it really doesn't. Again, it just makes the signal more even so that we can make everything a little bit louder. And to actually make it louder, because the compressor is really turning things down, we have a control here called the makeup gain. Okay. And it just says gain here, but it's really the makeup gain or the output gain. Oh, see, when you hover over it, it does say makeup gain, because the compressor is going to basically truncate the loudest parts of the signal and turn those down. And then we can turn the overall signal up and make that overall volume back up. This compressor has a unique feature where it has an auto makeup gain, so that you don't have to even think about it. It'll automatically detect how much gain reduction you're getting by the amount of compression you're applying, and then it will automatically boost that signal back up for you. Now, let's talk a little bit about the attack and release. The attack and release, let's just go back to the analogy of having your mother in the car, right? When she reaches over, how fast does she turn that down? And then once it's down below her threshold again, how fast or how quickly or slowly does she release that knob and allow the signal to go back to where it was, okay? So the attack time is how long does it take to get from uncompressed to full compressed. And then the release time is after the signal has receded the threshold, how long does it take to get from compressed back to uncompressed? Cool. This plugin, again, I really love the stock compressor plugin here in Studio One, because it also has an auto attack and release time that could be great for a lot of you if you're beginning, but make sure that you understand these controls. We're not going to focus on side chaining right now. Just know that that's how you use a different signal to actually control the compressor instead of the signal that the compressor is inserted on. The mix control is actually pretty dope. I love when a plugin has a mix control. This is going to allow us to do parallel compression right here without any other tracks or any other additional features. Basically, the mix control will allow us to blend between our wet signal and our dry signal. This way we can still keep some of those original dynamics, but still tame some of the peaks as we need to. For now, in this example, we'll keep the mix control up to 100%. So to start working with the compressor, it's important that you just spend time listening. So let me just solo this vocal out, and then I'm going to listen to that vocal as I am compressing it. All right, I'm going to work with my ratio and threshold. It's going to be the first thing that I do. I want to make sure that my peaks are starting to engage the compressor. So let's start there.
Getting paid in the off season, all that beef, I'm not vegan. They used to call me young heathen.
So we have this little meter here at the top to show us how much we are compressing by. I'm going to reset that.
Getting paid in the off season, all that beef, I'm not vegan.
You see now, I'm lowering my threshold. So this is showing my input meter. It's showing my output. So you see how much we're attenuating that signal.
Getting paid in the off season, all that beef, I'm not vegan. They used to call me young.
And in this case with the compressor, my goal is to simply control the peaks of the audio. So I don't really want to compress the whole thing. I just want to knock off those peaks of my loudest parts. So I'm watching and listening. I love the graphic on here. It's that way you can see whenever the signal crosses the threshold. This dot here represents our threshold. Right. And then we'll see once we plan it, how the signal exceeds that threshold and then starts to compress.
Getting paid in the off season, all that beef, I'm not vegan. They used to call me young heathen. I keep that heat, it's op season. From the block to the blockchain.
All right, I like how that's feeling. Now I'm gonna play with my attack and release time a little bit. I like the ratio here of about a 5-to-1, and that knee, again, having that about a mid-range knee is pretty good there. But now let's play with my release time. That release time seemed like it's going a little bit slow, so I want to make that a little bit faster. And again, that just means to stop compressing after the signal recedes the threshold again.
Getting paid in the off season, all that beef, I'm not vegan. They used to call me young heathen. I keep that heat, it's op season. From the block to the blockchain, Mazda the moose same. My Coinbase like blue flames. I'm dropping gems like loose. Getting paid in the off season, all that beef, I'm not vegan. They used to call me young heathen. I keep that heat, it's op season. From the block to the blockchain, Mazda the moose.
Okay, and so I'm getting about 9 dB worth of compression, so I could use my makeup gain to bring that back.
Getting paid in the off season. All that beef, I'm not vegan. They used to call me young heathen. I keep that heat, it's op season. From the block to the blockchain. Mazda the moose same. My Coinbase like blue flames. I'm dropping gems like loose change.
I like it. I like it. Let's make my attack time a little bit slower so that we can keep some of those peaks coming through and keep that vocal a little more punchy. Let's hear it again.
Getting paid in the off season. All that.
Yeah, that sounds better already.
Getting paid in the off season. All that beef, I'm not vegan.
All right, now let's listen to this in the mix. So I'm gonna unmute my beat and let's hear it.
Getting paid in the off season. All that beef, I'm not vegan. They used to call me young heathen. I keep that heat, it's op season. From the block to the blockchain. Mazda the moose same. My Coinbase like blue flames. I'm dropping gems like loose change.
All right, now let's bypass this. As we are playing this, I'm gonna activate and deactivate this compressor so that we can hear the differences.
Getting paid in the off season. All that beef, I'm not vegan. They used to call me young heathen. I keep that heat, it's op season. From the block to the blockchain. Mazda the moose same. My Coinbase like blue flames. I'm dropping gems like loose change.
Wow. Compressing really helps to bring that vocal forward while controlling those dynamics and just making it more present, man. I'm Wavy Wayne from WavyWayne.com. Make sure you subscribe to this channel so that you can catch all of my Studio One tutorials. Y'all go ahead and be dope. I'll catch you later.